An alchemical transmutation a day keeps the tax collectors away. Revenge is a dish best served on a golden platter. A skull on the shelf is worth...
Hey, what you doing, bud?
Who, me? I'm putting some of my immeasurable and ancient wisdom into memorable little nuggets of truth.
Oh, you mean like Maxims?
Sure, but don't feel too bad if you don't understand them. They're really meant for higher intelligences such as myself.
Okay, none taken. But this is actually great news because I was thinking it was time to talk about Maxims.
I'm sure you were. The serendipity is incredible.
Isn't it? Well, as long as you're here and maximing it up, why don't we pick up where we left off on the Progymnasmata and talk about how ancient exercises related to maxims can help modern writers to amp up their writing.
You must love having me as a prisoner participant.
Not as much as you do, bud.
Gross. Let's just get this over with.
Fine. So for those of you playing along at home, students in the ancient world spent some of their time studying and working with maxims. For our purposes today, we'll stick with the simple version of Aphthonius the Sophist's definition that a maxim is a summary statement in declarative sentences urging or dissuading something. If you really wanted to get into it, you could follow the ancient divisions of protreptic and aprotreptic maxims, simple, credible, hyperbolic, and more. But again, we're just going to keep it simple and think of maxims as straightforward declarations of some kind of conventional truth or wisdom. Last time we talked about kreyas, which look a lot like maxims on the surface, except that kreyas are words or actions attributed to a particular person, while maxims are only words with no attribution. So where kreyas reveal something about the wisdom or character of a person, maxims tend to work as statements of generic truth. For example, Aphthonius shares these. One should be kind to a visiting stranger, but send him on his way when he wants to go, from the Odyssey. Many rulers are not good. Let there be one ruler, from the Iliad. And there is need of money, and without it nothing needful can be done, from Demosthenes. In each case, we have a simple declarative statement urging or dissuading something. Be nice to visitors, but don't hold them hostage. Have one leader rather than several, and it's hard to get good things done without money.
Which is why it's so wild that I'm stuck here, that you keep insisting on having a role in the show, and that you won't just loosen up about those Kaput co-sponsorships.
Well, all that aside, like with a kreia, a maxim would have offered clear benefits to an ancient student preparing to make their mark in the rhetorical world. The ability to condense arguments or practical wisdom into short, memorable statements would go a long way toward making a speech more effective in an assembly or a court. But we are not, as far as I can tell, preparing for a career as Roman advocates, so what can maxims do for us? The most obvious route is to try implementing maxims in our own writing. Poems will sometimes end with a maxim-flavored flourish, like Philip Larkin's The Mower, which ends with the lines, "We should be careful of each other. We should be kind while there is still time." So practicing maxims can give you experience, finding concise, direct ways to cap off a piece. Although, danger alert, in the Rhetoric, Aristotle points out that maxims are more persuasive when they come from the old than when they come from the young. Because, as he explains, the old have earned that kind of simple, direct wisdom through experience. When a young person shows up and starts spouting unqualified wisdom, you would be justified in being a little skeptical that they actually know what they're talking about. But I'm not actually interested in making this an issue of age. The real point is that to pull off a maxim in a piece, your piece is going to have to earn it, to show your reader that it knows what it's talking about, and that it's not just making bold, unverified generalizations. So while Larkin's The Mower does end with a sweeping generic statement about being nice to people, in the context of that poem, which does everything it can to earn it, the maxim at the end lands a lot more like a gut punch than a cheap abstraction. And similar things can show up in other genres too. Essays tend to lend themselves to the development of maxims that arise from the speaker working through an idea or experience, and there's plenty of room for maxims in fiction too. But you could take it even further. Beyond just incorporating a maxim here or there in your writing, you could try to construct a piece entirely out of maxims. Jamaica Kincaid's oft-anthologized story Girl, or poem depending on who you ask, is built entirely out of the maxim-styled advice that a mother gives her daughter for being a proper woman. From start to finish, we get simple declarative statements urging or dissuading one thing or another. classic maxims. And poets like James Richardson are most well known for writing aphorisms, little statements of wisdom. And we could go on a long journey disentangling terms like maxim, aphorism, or proverb, but it kind of feels like freaking out if someone calls your love seat a couch. At any rate, I took a class once where the teacher assigned us to write poems composed exclusively of aphorisms, or maxims, if you will. There's a certain value to being able to compress your insight into a pithy statement. Not every poem has to be all aphorisms all the time, but as always, the Progymnasmata is about developing skills in isolation that can serve you well in other contexts. Get a good handle on maxims by themselves, and you'll be more practiced at crafting them here and there when the situation really calls for it. But wait, as always, there's more.
Just when you think you can start enjoying your day.
We're not just writing maxims. Aphthonius the Sophist also presents a list of exercises that students could do to write about maxims, and looking them over, any one of them could serve as a great prompt for a writing project. There's praise. Find a maxim and write a piece about how great it is. For students working with the Progymnasmata, that might have just been writing a little blurb about how good and useful a particular maxim was. But what if you wrote a poem reflecting on the wise words of your third grade teacher and how, even still, they help you to make good decisions? Or paraphrase, not to be confused with paraphrase, where you offer a more elaborated, explanatory version of a maxim.
Oh, sure, like taking the Grand Council's maxim, dark alchemy is bad alchemy, and paraphrasing it like this. Dark alchemy is unfamiliar to us, and it seems unnatural, so tiny baby cowards that we are, we're going to forbid its practice and scorn its practitioners, rather than expand our horizons and improve ourselves, our art, and the universe.
Yeah, maybe something like that, I guess. You could also write an examination of cause. Maybe you start an essay with a maxim you've developed for yourself, and then use the essay to reflect on the experiences and insights that led you to that maxim, like a sort of origin story for your own personal statement of wisdom. Or take the contrary view. Write a short story about a character who is overly committed to a maxim, and show how their inability to see beyond their own dogmatism puts them in a difficult situation. Unlike the ancient students, you aren't actually responding to the maxim, but using the tools of fiction to illustrate the consequences of taking received wisdom too seriously. And don't sleep on comparison. A penny saved is a penny earned, but what else is like that? Sounds like the beginning of an essay that compares and contrasts the influences of two related bits of conventional wisdom on your first semester at college. And you could always provide an example. I'm seeing it now, a poem entitled A Bird in the Hand that talks about a difficult decision to move to a new city.
Or a vitriolic screed called Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fonder, for revenge.
Yeah, or that. You sure are bringing a lot of intensity to the show today, bud.
Well, you would too if the Universal Academy of Alchemical Arts removed your name from their roles because they lacked the spine to stand up to the council.
Oh, which reminds me of testimony, where you find a second supporting account of a maxim. Aphthonius the Sophist cites a maxim by Theognis and then provides an example from Euripides that backs up the original maxim. And of course, beyond just providing another example, you could write a piece that examines the relationship between the two, or even interrogates the validity of the maxim. What if, for example, you found a counterexample? And finally, epilogue, a statement that usually serves to finish up a speech by repeating its main gesture and reminding the audience of what has been said. Take a maxim and then write a little so what statement. Great, so we have that maxim, but so what? What do we do with it? Or have a little fun and make the epilogue orders of magnitude longer than the actual maxim. Maybe like a virtuosic cadenza on the theme of the maxim. I don't know, you can do whatever you want. In the end, the idea is this. You can sprinkle maxims into your writing, build a piece exclusively out of stacks of maxims, or even use a maxim as a seed for a larger project that examines or responds to or riffs off the maxim in some way. Of course, these are exercises for practice, so there's no harm in putting the maxim front and center, but remember that a final piece doesn't have to show any signs of the prompt that generated it. So you might end up writing something really awesome and revising the maxim right out of it, and that's fine. If the maxim did its job and got you started, there's no reason to hang on to it after that if you don't need to. That would be like collecting all the exhaust from your car because it used to be the gasoline that got it going in the first place. Listen, it did its job, and holding on to it isn't going to do you any good.
But letting exhaust go isn't really doing anyone else any good.
I mean, yeah, any metaphor falls apart if you poke it hard enough, But that's not really the point. Besides, this is not environmental science with Andrew, not on this channel anyway.
Oh, you can't keep putting these terrible ideas out into the universe, bud. I mean, what if that actually happened, and then I'd have to sit through even more of your nonsense?
You know, I've kind of gotten bored of this conversation. How are your Maxims coming along?
Well, how do you think? I was working on them until you interrupted me for whatever this is.
Wow, so sorry. But I'm sure you were thinking about them while you were busy not paying attention to what I was saying. That does kind of seem to be your thing, bud.
So what if it is? I was, in fact, ignoring you, and I do, as it happens, have a maxim that I think you might like.
Oh, great, let's hear it.
Subscribe or suffer.
Whoa, it kind of seems like maybe we don't want to lead with threatening our potential audience.
Threats? No, it's just a statement of natural consequences. If you don't subscribe, you'll miss out, and that will cause suffering.
Oh, well, it's kind of nice when you put it that way. So, are you subscribed to the show?
What, and double my suffering? You've got to be kidding. No, seeing it live is plenty enough for me.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Subscribe or don't. Either way, it sounds like there will be suffering, at least from Kaput's alleged point of view. Writing with Andrew does not endorse any threatening behavior towards subscribers, real or imagined. So, with our apologies for any potential misunderstanding, we thank you for watching, wish you the best in your Maxim writing journey, and hope to see you again next week for more delightful writing goodness. Isn't that right, bud?
Sure, whatever. Ooh, but what about this paraphrase? Let no one who is not subscribed be content to suffer, for it is a natural consequence that suffering should follow one who is missing out on all the so-called delightful writing goodness. This is a wise statement, and it is easy to see how beautifully it is said.